Hey everybody, Crystal here, True Crime Tuesday. Imagine going to a barbecue, having the best barbecue sandwich you can think of. A few months later, finding out via the news that the person actually was killing people, children specifically, and mixing them up in barbecue and feeding them to people. That actually happened. It happened in Great Falls, and it's pretty gruesome. Today we're going to talk about Nathaniel Bar-Jonah. Nathan Benjamin Levi Bar-Jonah, who was born David Paul Brown. He was born on February 15th, 1957. He was a convicted child molester and a suspected serial killer and cannibal. He was sentenced to 130 years in prison without the possibility of parole in Montana after being convicted of kidnapping, aggravated assault, and assault of various children. In July 1964, a then 7-year-old Bar-Jonah lured a 5-year-old neighbor into his basement, telling her that he had received a Ouija board for his birthday that could predict the future. Once in this basement, Bar-Jonah attempted to strangle the little girl, but her screams attracted the attention of his mother, who came to her rescue. In January 1970, at the age of 12, Bar-Jonah managed to lure another neighbor, a 6-year-old boy, to a nearby hill, claiming he wanted to go sledding with him. Once they arrived, however, Bar-Jonah assaulted the boy. A few years later, Bar-Jonah attempted to lure 2 boys riding their bicycles down the street to a nearby cemetery where he intended to murder them, but one of the boys grew suspicious and persuaded his friend not to go. In late March 1975, Bar-Jonah, who was at that time impersonating a police officer, abducted 8-year-old Richard O'Connor while he was on his way to school. He then proceeded to assault and strangle him. A neighbor, looking out of her window, observed the abduction and notified authorities, who began searching for the boy. A patrol car later observed a car matching that used in the abduction parked away from others in a parking lot, and after calling for backup, ordered Bar-Jonah out of the car. O'Connor was found in the car bloodied, having defecated and urinated on himself from the assault, and near the point of death. A few days later, before his high school graduation, Bar-Jonah drove nearby to Hartford, Connecticut, and, again impersonating a police officer, abducted a 9-year-old girl. However, the child began vomiting and convulsing from the assault. He drove up to a sidewalk and threw the girl out of the car. A nearby witness saw the incident and got Bar-Jonah's license plate, leading to his arrest. This assault never got back to his probation officer, and he was released from parole in May of 1976 for his earlier abduction and sexual assault of O'Connor. When Bar-Jonah's probationary period was over, he received a letter thanking him for his cooperation. And this is nuts because he did all of this before he even graduated high school. Like, what? It's like a few days before his high school graduation, he did that to that little girl. On September 24th, 1977, Bar-Jonah, claiming to be an undercover FBI agent this time, convinced 2 boys coming out of a White City cinema in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, to enter his vehicle. Bar-Jonah then transported the boys to a secluded area where he handcuffed and then proceeded to strangle and flick cigarette ashes upon them. After jumping repeatedly on the chest of one of the boys, this 375-pound man believed that he had killed him and drove off with the others still alive in his trunk. However, the first boy regained consciousness and managed to find help, leading shortly thereafter to Bar-Jonah's arrest. The other boy was found, still alive in his trunk. For this crime, he was convicted of attempted murder and received the maximum sentence of 18 to 20 years in prison. While in prison, he was transferred to the Bridgewater State Hospital. On March 22nd, 1984, he changed his name to Nathaniel Benjamin Levi Bar-Jonah. He gave several reasons for changing his name. He told friends and relatives that he wanted to know what it was like to be discriminated against and persecuted as a Jew. What? So he wanted to know what it felt like to be discriminated and persecuted as a Jew, which is why he changed his name, according to him. During a later interview with Dr. Michael Stone for the television show Most Evil, he claimed he was Jewish and wanted his name to reflect that. Later, in the same year, Superior Court Judge Walter E. Steele ruled that Massachusetts had failed to prove that Bar-Jonah was dangerous, and he was released before moving to Great Falls, Montana. During this time, Bar-Jonah confided in his psychiatrist that he fantasized about abducting, murdering, and cannibalizing children. On August 9th, 1991, just a month after being released from Bridgewater State Hospital, Bar-Jonah observed a 7-year-old boy sitting alone in a car outside of a post office in Oxford, Massachusetts. Bar-Jonah, who weighed 275 pounds at that time, entered the vehicle and sat on the boy, thrusting his mass atop the boy's fragile chest. Some witnesses, along with the boy's mother, observed the event and ran to the boy's rescue, causing Bar-Jonah to flee. An officer recognized Bar-Jonah's description from over 15 years earlier, and he was arrested for that attack. At first, Bar-Jonah claimed that he entered the car to get out of the rain, but later admitted that he intended to kill the boy. For that attack, Bar-Jonah was sentenced to probation in Montana. How do you get sentenced to probation for trying to kill a boy by sitting your fat butt on them? Like, seriously. How do you get probation for that? Only probation. It just keeps on going, because on February 6, 1996, 10-year-old Zach Ramsey left his apartment at around 7:34 a.m. to go to school like he usually did. He normally took a route through an alleyway, and that was his normal route that he took to school. At that time, a family of 3 who lived in the apartment that was by the alleyway that he normally took saw Zach there that morning and reported also seeing an off-white 4-door car nearly run over him. Another witness reported seeing Zach standing in the alleyway and that he appeared to be waiting for somebody. Yet, another witness who lived near the end of the alleyway reported seeing Zach distressed and crying, with an obese adult male following him a few feet behind at 7:45 a.m. A witness reported seeing Bar-Jonah standing beside a dumpster in the alleyway that morning at 7:15 a.m. He was wearing a navy blue police-like jacket. The same witness also reported seeing Ramsey enter the alleyway later and that Bar-Jonah was still standing beside the dumpster. Somewhere between where the alleyway cuts into 6th Street and comes out of 7th Street, Ramsey disappeared. He's never been heard from since. Despite objections from Ramsey's mother, a judge declared him legally dead in 2011. Police investigations conducted years after Ramsey went missing determined that Bar-Jonah had access to his mother's off-white 4-door 1978 Toyota Corolla the day that the boy disappeared, and that his mother and his brother were out of town for a funeral. It was moreover determined that Bar-Jonah did not work on February 6, 1996, nor on the days immediately preceding. While searching Bar-Jonah's apartment, detectives found a list of boys' names which included previous victims and a Zachary Ramsey, followed by the word died. Furthermore, dozens of newspaper clippings were found in Bar-Jonah's apartment following the Ramsey case. A former roommate of Bar-Jonah described finding clothes in his apartment which appeared to match those of Zach, the ones that he was wearing the day that he disappeared, in addition to bloody gloves. Another roommate and others claimed that Bar Jonah sometimes spontaneously brought up the boy in conversations just randomly. Investigators also found notebooks with seemingly arbitrary characters which were believed to be coded writing. With the help of the FBI and after months of effort, the writing was decoded. In notebooks, Bar Jonah described torturing and eating children. There were also macabre recipes involving children's body parts in these notebooks. When detectives sprayed Bar Jonah's garage with a phosphorus chemical while investigating his involvement in the Ramsey disappearance, the word Tita appeared, which led authorities to believe that Bar Jonah may have been responsible for the abduction of James Tita, a Massachusetts boy who was kidnapped on August 23, 1973. Tita's body was discovered on August 25th in Rindge, New Hampshire. An autopsy revealed that he had been raped and strangled. Bar Jonah was finally arrested again in 1999, initially for impersonating a police officer. After searching his home and finding, among other things, many pictures of young children cut out of magazines and a bone that was identified to be belonging to an unknown young male, Montana police charged Bar Jonah with kidnapping and sexual assault, as well as kidnapping and sexual assault of 3 other boys. He was prosecuted for the abduction and the molestation of 3 boys and convicted of kidnapping, aggravated assault, and sexual assault, including charges that he had tortured one of the boys and hung him from a ceiling. This person is so awful. During Bar Jonah's trial, 36-year-old Mary Patrone recognized him as the man who had abducted and assaulted her by dressing as a police officer in 1974. However, the statute of limitations had expired and Bar Jonah could not be charged with the crime. Investigators also suspected Bar Jonah in the disappearance of a 7-year-old Janice Pickett 10 months earlier. He was sentenced to 130 years in prison, and he maintained his innocence up until his death. Montana authorities were aware of Bar Jonah's criminal record in Massachusetts. In fact, it was cited by activists campaigning to force former sex offenders to register. In December of 2004, the Montana Supreme Court turned down Bar Jonah's appeals and upheld the conviction of a 130-year prison sentence. Well, duh, they should have kept him in jail the first time. They just, kept letting him go for some reason. It was just, this is a huge failure in the justice system right here. Perfect example. Bar Jonah was found unresponsive in his prison cell in the morning of April 13th, 2008. He had been in poor health. His post-mortem found significant levels of LDL in his arteries and a myocardial infarction, which was a determinative cause of death. So the LDL is clogged arteries, pretty much. And then the heart issues. So he basically he died of being obese and overweight for the most part. Bar Jonah's earliest interests in the taste of human flesh can be traced back to his childhood. Beginning at about the age of 6, he would pick at his scabs until his skin was festering and then proceed to suck on the blood from his wound. His teachers at Webster Elementary School would call his mother numerous times to notify her that her son's habit was upsetting the teachers and the students. When he was incarcerated in Montana State Prison, many of the guards observed him perform the same habit. One guard reported that once Bar Jonah had the scab in his mouth, that he appeared to be having sex while incarcerated at Bridgewater State Mental Hospital. Bar Jonah confided in his psychiatrists about numerous and several cannibalistic ideations. One of his therapists noted that his sexual fantasies, bizarre in nature, and extend to dissection and cannibalism. And again, he expressed a curiosity about the taste of human flesh. Although Bar Jonah was known to be a voracious eater who weighed in excess of 300 pounds, Financial records indicated that he had not made any significant grocery store purchases in nearly a month after Ramsey disappeared. However, he could have paid for groceries using cash, or he may have been well stocked on food or meat. You never know, but I think we all kind of have an idea of what happened there. After Ramsey's disappearance, Barjona also began to hold cookouts in which he reported to serve burgers, spaghetti, chili, meat pies, casserole, and the like to guests. At many of these cookouts, a number of persons told Barjona that the meat had a particular taste to it. Barjona's response was that he had gone deer hunting and used deer meat in the dishes. However, Barjona did not own a rifle for hunting or a hunting license, nor had been deer hunting at any time. To one woman who told Barjona that she found the taste of the meat repulsive, he replied that he had personally hunted, killed, butchered, and wrapped the meat of the deer. He would later be accused of molesting this woman's son. In Barjona's apartment, detectives also found a number of recipes using children's body parts with contemptuous titles as little boy pot pie, French fried kid, and phrases such as lunch served on the patio with roasted child. In the decoded journals, Barjona also referenced serving these recipes to neighbors. Also, hair was found inside the meat grinder in his apartment. When the hair was tested for DNA, it was found to belong to an African American male, but did not belong to Ramsey. The DNA of the hair was also different from the child bone fragments found in Barjona's garage, which also did not belong to Ramsey. And that is why, friends, we don't accept food from strangers. And that was also the story of Nathaniel Barjona, who is the most awful person in the world. Well, one of them. Top 10, at least. Anyways, I do appreciate you guys listening along and listening to my insights on this craziness. Don't forget to join us on Discord, where we chit-chat about all things spooky and whatever else pops up. I'm also working on a Patreon, so if you want to support me in my Patreon, the link's down below. Granted, the content is not very much, but we're working on it. And you also get a shout-out at the end of my stories. Thank you for watching True Crime Tuesday. I will see you guys again next Tuesday.